All right, boys, welcome back. It is week 9 of the NFL season. It's our third episode. We haven't been here since week 2. It's been a while. Life gets in the way. 2/3 of us have kids, but we're back. How's everybody feeling? Bill, what's life like over there? Are you waking up multiple times a night? Are you able to still concentrate on your mid-tier fantasy football team?
Yeah, I spend too much time looking at it. But yeah, things are good. It feels good to be back.
Mesh, how about you? You have had a lot of action in the last few weeks, a couple
Yeah,
trades, some up and down games. You sit in third right now. How are you feeling?
I'm also waking up, many times during the night to take care of my fantasy baby. My team is my baby. That thing keeps me up at night too. Make sure I keep feeding the baby, keep these dubs coming.
I tell you what, I get notifications at I think like 4:52 a.m. the minute things process, and it's like Mac has dropped a defense. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know when that kid gets up. But before we go any further, let's take a shot. This is episode 3 of the Get Fucked Trios podcast. I'm drinking some Real McCoy rum. I don't know why I went
Yeah,
rum
some
this time. What are
Buffalo
you guys
Trace.
drinking? Some Buffalo Trace. Bill, what are you doing over there?
Bullet whiskey.
Some Bullet. There you go. All right, boys. Cheers to episode 3. Let's do this.
All right, truth serum. Woo.
All right. Ooh, yeah. Didn't
It's
love
been a
that.
while.
Okay, cool. Moving on. Yeah, it's been a while. All right, we'll kick things off with some game recaps. So, unfortunately, I'm not coming at you with the fastest 2 minutes. That took quite a lot of brain power and creativity. So I'm going to have to come back to you with another round later in the season. I think I used every pun I had in my pockets there for that one. But we'll start off with a quick recap of Week 8. Kick things off with the blowout of the week. Pesh with a 640 over Dooley with a 370. Not a good outing from Dooley. He got a stinker from Mahomes, 38 points. Probably not going to happen too often. Jalen Waddle, the top scorer, 75. CJ Stroud has been really good this year, only put up 60. Pesh, on the other hand, you put up 640, right? This was led by a 1-2 punch with Kamara and ETN, both running backs putting up 90 points, a 150 spot from Joe Burrow. Pesh moves to 5-3, moves into third place. Pesh, how'd you feel about this past week?
I mean, the scores speak for themselves. You have a bottom feeder and you have a perennial, dynasty leader, and it's kind of how it's shook out. I don't think anyone here was surprised. Maybe Struthers was, but that's why I don't put too much, emphasis on his power rankings.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense. Dooley getting a stray shot right out the bat, but when you put up a 340, then those are the shots you kind of get. Second matchup of the week, we've got Sean beating David 540 over 450. Both guys had tie records coming into the game. David, man, he moves to 3-5. He's in 9th place in the standings right now. He gets 90 points out of Russell Wilson, but not a lot else was happening. Decided to go with a 60-point outing from Tyler Badgett instead of starting Josh Dobbs, who put up 110. We'll talk about him again later this episode, but a poor outing from David. Some classic David poor roster decisions. 450 points. Sean, on the other hand, he gets up to 540 on the backs of basically quarterbacks. Not a lot else going on this past week for Sean, but Josh Allen puts up 150. Sam Howell puts up 170. The rest of his team gets him to 540. Sean moves into 5th place. Bill, how do you feel about this matchup between Sean and David?
David's been disappointing this whole season, frankly. I expected more. He's down there towards the bottom. When your best quarterback is Russell Wilson, your team's not looking great.
But
Sean
you
is
got
a
any quick
quarterback.
comments on? Yeah, we talked about it in week 2 or 3 or whatever it was about Sean's quarterbacks. There's been changes in Sean's quarterbacks, and Sean's quarterbacks are still doing well. So we'll
Yeah.
talk about that in a second. Third matchup of week 8, you had myself putting up a 670. I thought it was good enough for a pizza. 100-point beating of DH at 570. DH in 10th place for us. DH put up a good outing. It's too bad he ran into a buzzsaw of a team, but a 570 doesn't get him a win. Would have got him a win a lot of other weeks. Just takes a 6th loss, unfortunately. Again, team put up a good outing. Tua put up 120. Baker 112 on that Thursday night game. McLaurin looked good. Brian Robinson looked good. Barkley looked good. So a good outing, but Hassett on the other side with a 670. The 1-2 punch of Herbert and Dak Prescott really coming into form right here. 140 out of Herbert, 150 out of Dak. The unstoppable machine that is Tyreek, another 70-point outing. I mean, he's been unreal. And of course, Brees Hall continues his ascension with another 60-plus point outing. So that's 670 for Hassett. Bill, how bad is DH's team and how good is
Yeah.
Hassett's team? Are they as good and as bad as they are in the standings right now?
Man, what a leading question. No, yeah, I mean, if you're DH, this has got to be demoralizing if you're DH to look at,
Oh,
he needed to win this week. He comes out, he puts up 575 almost, and he gets train run on him by 100 points. I mean, but you look at his team and it's like you got Miles Sanders in there. He's putting up 0. What happened there? I don't know.
yeah. Miles Sanders has been disappointing. He's a huge underperformer, but
So you do start to question management a little bit. I don't know, but Hassett, all your players crushed. All your players put up more than their projections, pretty much. That's impressive.
yeah, pretty good outing. A lot of touchdowns across the board. Let's go to game 4. Keep this thing moving. We had the closest matchup of the week. It was a 20-point win. Mac over Kurt. We had Sunday night, Monday night implications. Both guys had guys going. It looked like maybe Kurt was going to be able to sneak back. Eckler had a few big plays there, but fumbled late. I think that was Sunday night. A good outing again for Kurt, another 570. Let's see, he would have beat DH. He would have beat DH by 3 points, so I guess DH would have still taken a few losses. Eckler with a 66. Bryce Young with an 82. Not a lot of 40s, 50s coming out of Kurt. So, some mediocre levels here and there, but he loses by 20 to Mac. Mac has a decent week from, some of his studs, but mostly AJ Brown with 100, CeeDee Lamb with 120. I mean, 220 points out of your top 2 wide receivers. Pesh, how are you thinking about Mac's team? Is this a true competitor for the title?
Yeah, I mean, his team's bouncing back nicely. I mean, like Cooper Kupp, 12 points, and he still puts up nearly 600. I mean, he's got some, assets there. He's got some firepower there. This all with Chubb injured. He's hit some injuries. Kupp's back. I mean, I don't expect him to get 12 points again. I think Jared Goff, Geno Smith have underperformed last week, and he still put up close to 600. And as your point to the last one for DH would have lost to 5 people. So
Yeah.
it was a high scoring week. I mean, you got to step up your game
It was.
this week.
Man, it's just
570 doesn't always cut it.
Yeah,
it's just impressive to me. It's impressive to me. Curtis loses this matchup by only 20 points. If he would have won, they each would have been 4 and 3, and it would have been a completely different rankings. But now
100%.
McIntosh 6 and 2, and Curtis is 4 and 4, and Curtis in the group chat, he's trying to sell already. I don't know. Maybe he's giving up on the season.
Yeah,
they would have
it's a tough loss.
5 and 3, right? Not 4 and 3.
Yeah, they would have both been 5 and 3.
Yeah.
They would have been tied. It would have been an extra game separation at the top. It would have been an extra game bunched in the middle. Definitely would have had standings implications. But a 20-point victory goes in Mac's direction. The fumble at the end really hurt Kurt. Huge win for Mac, moves him into second place. All right, in our 5th and final matchup of week 8, we'll give it to Fenchie with the pizza on Monday night. A 690 to Bill's 550. A valiant effort from Bill. Actually, we just talked about it. The league was pretty high scoring, so it's still on the bottom half for Bill. A 550. He gets a big outing out of Jalen Hurts, a nice 150 spot. Lamar comes in a little soft with 70 points. A week, of course, after facing me and putting up, I think, 120 in the first quarter. Only musters a 70-point spot in week 8. A good outing from Jamar Chase, but a little bit lackluster across the running back spot as James Cook and Isaiah Pacheco combined for less than 50. And Fenchie, of course, the big story. He had a big outing from Kirk Cousins. Rest in peace, Kirk Cousins. 100 points out of Jahmyr Gibbs. That was the big Monday night explosion there. A few huge runs, a few big touchdowns. Got another 70 from George Kittle. After activating Kareem Hunt, starting him, gets 80 points out of Kareem Hunt. So an all-around good week out of Fenchie, including a few manufactured moves to get points. So, a good bounce back week for Fenchie, 690 points. Bill, how did it feel to get literally run over by Jahmyr Gibbs?
Yeah, no, it was rough, but I saw this one coming pretty early. Things weren't looking good for me, and Fenchie was just projected so many more points. His projection just kept going up and up and up. So I saw this loss coming, and it wasn't my week, and hats off to Fenchie.
Hats off to Fenchie indeed. Moves him into 7th place in the standings, but as you pointed out earlier this week, 6th place and in the playoffs. So, that's where we leave it with week 8. Hassett at top at first. Max steals a win, keeps him in second. Pesh, Bill, Sean, and Fenchie round off the playoffs. And then you got Kurt on the outside looking in with Dooley, David, and DH rounding up the rear. Any big takeaways from week 8 that we want to talk about, or should we keep it moving and do a little bit of season recap today?
I think week 8 was, sort of what you expected in a lot of matchups. I mean, you had some surprises here and there, but like kind of the big guys expect to win one other than kind of Bill. And I think the main surprise here was Fenchie, whose season is probably on the brink.
Yeah.
He lost there, and he's probably, out of the playoff picture, and all of a sudden now he's very much squarely in it. I mean, the Kirk Cousins part hurts. He got Will Levis to step up right at the same time, on a different
Yeah.
team that worked out, give him a second quarterback. Deontay Johnson came back from injury. He's starting to put up a little bit of points. So like, he's got something maybe to not mail in the season. And also, quick correction: Kareem Hunt only put up 48, not 80. I think you were looking at Jordan Love.
Oh, my bad. I think I just meant to say 48 and the 8. Probably fucked me
Which
over.
isn't
But yeah,
bad.
48
Not a bad
points.
score. It's
I
solid.
mean, still, I think he had 50 points across all his flex and running
Yeah.
back spots. So
It was
a
a
good
very
outing.
solid showing.
Good outing nonetheless. Yeah. Okay, Bill. Any lasting thoughts from week 8 or?
No, I'm still looking at Fenchie's team, and you look at Fenchie's team, and I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of playmakers there. You got to think that he's got a chance, but we'll see coming up in power rankings.
Yeah, a lot of that.
HN coming back from HN coming back from injury. You're right. There's a few guys that could pop here. This week, of course, is absolutely hilarious with his entire team on bye, but a much needed win and pizza from Frenchie in week 8. I think very much so keeping the season alive. And a good reminder that if you look at the standings here, right, 1 week like that can change things. We've had a lot of sellers in the chat, and yet you're literally at most 2 games out of the playoffs with still another 6 weeks to go. So yeah, moving on. Okay, so let's do a quick season to date. We're going to start with a few quick hitters. So we're going to look at the waiver wire, right? Let's look at some noticeable FAABs along the way. I think the first one we wanted to call out looks like week 4-ish. I think David picks up Adam Thielen for $3. He's been really incredible since. Any thoughts on Thielen? I mean, obviously he's a dinosaur, but he's been fantastic for a pretty bad Carolina team. What do you guys think about Thielen? Does he have sticking power?
Yeah, I mean, this one's sort of hits home for me. I drafted Thielen with one of my lower last round picks. It could have been a good keeper for me. I dropped him pretty early. I mean, one of my themes for this season is being impatient. I don't think he'll last till next season. I think he's good for a rookie quarterback who needs a veteran presence. Big white guy, he can catch up some balls, but he's getting old.
Yeah. You got to think his time's up after this season. I'd be shocked if he contributes next season.
A week later, we had next most noteworthy pickup here. I think Josh Palmer. I bid $12. It was a win for me. Kurt with $5 was the next closest bid. Also Mac involved, David involved. What do you guys think about Joshua Palmer? Does he have a role here with Mike Williams and the injury going down? It's been all Keenan Allen really. A very high target share for Herbert. Him and the tight ends. Does Josh Palmer have a place in this offense?
I think so far he's showing he has a little bit of like a big play, feast or famine. It's interesting because they drafted that first rounder, Quentin Johnson or something. He hasn't done anything.
Yeah, he hasn't done shit.
Mike Williams down, he'd be the next one up. But this guy Palmer's coming out of nowhere and doing stuff. But they got a lot of people throw the ball to. Keenan Allen eats up a lot of target shares. Eckler eats up a lot of target shares. I don't know. Palmer, I mean, he's a good flex play if you need someone. I don't know if he's much more than that.
Yeah, Hassett, have you been starting him? I mean, you like him because he's got that hookup with Herbert, right?
Yeah, I think I like the stack potential. I think I'm pretty deep at wide receiver, especially that sort of like wide receiver 2-3 spot with Godwin, Drake London, Addison. So I'm having a hard time fitting Palmer in, but I do feel like he's got stack potential in the playoffs. You're trying to hit a ceiling. So that was kind of my mentality. And I think he's looked good, but he'll get an opportunity. We'll see what he does with it.
I don't think you're as deep as you think.
Yeah, you don't think what? I'm as deep as I think.
Those names you mentioned were like pretty lackluster. Addison, Jefferson out, maybe getting a little burned out. Kirk Cousins out. I don't know.
All 3 of those guys are top 20 wide receivers right now. They are having all very solid years. And Addison's been spectacular. So I'm not sure what you're talking about. But over to you. We'll see. Why don't you defend then your $17 spending on Amari DeMarcado? Arizona running backs, I think James Conner went down with injury. I don't know a ton about DeMarcado. You bid 17. You beat out Mac for $10. This is week 6-ish. Give us the thought process there.
I think, for me, DeMarcado is just a rookie keeper. This is a dynasty league. I have a roster spot. I'm trying to keep him just in case for the future. I think he shows flashes of potential. He ran pretty well against the Ravens recently. I think it's a good person to just kind of snag and hold, in case Connor doesn't really come back. He's aging too.
Yeah, Connor's been interesting. I mean, he's old, but he just keeps on scoring points anytime he plays in games. So interesting dynamic there. Bill, what do you think about Darrell Henderson? He was kind of our next biggest pickup. $9. for Mac over a Curtis $5 bid. What's going on with the Rams backfield?
Yeah, I think Henderson's had a couple of really good games. I won't say really good, but a couple solid games back to back. I think it was a really nice pickup, and kind of upset at myself a little bit for not getting my hands on him.
Yeah, the Ram backfield I think has a lot of potential, but we'll see what happens once they start getting some guys back. And then Pesh, what do you think about this Trey McBride? $20 to David. He had a fantastic week. On the surface, it looks like a great pickup. He also was the only one to bid on him, so it was $19 probably wasted. But I mean, what do you think about Trey McBride? I know we're going to talk about tight ends here in a second. What's the
Yeah,
preview on Trey McBride?
I think Trey McBride is kind of a hold and watch, right? He's proven it for one good week, and now they have quarterback turmoil just like they have in Minnesota. They don't have Dobbs there anymore. Who's going to be throwing it to him? A lot of new quarterbacks do like their tight ends. They have a really young roster and core there between like their wide receivers, Wilson, DeMarcado, McBride. So, I mean, I think there's some good potential there. $20, maybe. I mean, the future will tell.
Yeah.
David's in rebuilding mode, right? So I think David's looking for guys to drop big spending on.
Yeah. And Trey McBride does have, a lot of potential, I think. I think you're right about, the dump downs from the quarterback. Josh Dobbs, I saw this stat today, the number one tight end target rate for quarterbacks. So he absolutely loaded Trey McBride this past week.
Yeah.
Might be a good pickup for David. Speaking of Josh Dobbs, that's the most recent pickup. So I got him for $21 last night over David's $19. A wild 48 hours for David. He drops Dobbs, I believe Tuesday morning, probably on the news that he's not starting. About 30 minutes later, the news comes out that he gets traded. Tough timing indeed. Goes into the waiver wire, loses out on Dobbs by $2.
Yeah.
Only didn't spend 20 on McBride.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it screwed him over twice. He wasted $20 on McBride that he didn't have for Dobbs. And then I saw a $20 bid. I bid 21 and I beat him. So screwed him both ways. Tough 48 hours.
This is a huge flub, a huge managerial flub by David.
I mean, I had interest in Dobbs, so obviously I wasn't going to blast David at the time. I wanted to, take as much chance of getting Dobbs myself as I could. But boy, oh boy, when I saw that's a tough management blunder. But it is what it is. David continues to, he'll continue to try to rebuild and sits in ninth place. We'll see what his next move is.
Hassett, what do you see in Dobbs though? Are you going to use him the rest of the year? What do you see? Because you have four quarterbacks, right? And Pesh,
yeah,
how many quarterbacks can you start again?
I think it's two. I mean, I think Hassett only has two quarterbacks he can start though. I was a bit miffed that he so heavily after Heineke and Dobbs. I don't really understand. Does he have a lot of buys coming up? Maybe that's what I'll have to look into. But like, Dobbs' long-term potential probably not there. I've seen enough on him that I'm not really sold on him. Heineke, we've seen him firsthand. He's not really someone you're going to be keeping next season. So like, no, these are plug and plays. I don't really know why you need both of them.
Exactly. But, And so Hassett's over here dropping $21 on a backup. He probably won't even see the field this year. Let's hope that doesn't come back to bite Hassett in the ass if he needs a player last week of the season.
Yeah, well, let's hope it doesn't. But I think I have seen enough evidence that a late quarterback injury will derail a team. And Bill, you should know better than anyone that being ill prepared with quarterbacks in the back half of the season is a way to not win a championship. So as far as I see it, I'm not claiming either of these guys are going to start, but I hit the reset button. I feel a lot better about my QB3 and my QB4. I feel a lot safer if shit hits the fan.
Timing wise, it worked out nicely because I kind of need a quarterback this week, and those are higher scoring ones that are possible. And
listen, you could argue it worked out nicely for me. You could argue it was poor foresight on you. You went into this week with a bye and an injured quarterback, so I don't know. I did see you were in a tough spot, and I figured you weren't going to be able to get in on Dobbs. So yeah, it was fortuitous timing.
I saw that.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of moves that Pesh did make, let's talk a little bit about some midseason trades. So Bill, Pesh has been involved in our two trades so far this season. We're going to start a new segment here. This is called Grade the Trade. Hopefully we'll have an opportunity to run this segment again at the end of the season. Two trades so far, both involve Pesh. The first one, Mark Andrews, he acquires from David in exchange for Garrett Wilson, an interesting trade in my perspective. And then again, Trevor Lawrence and Pittman for taken from Sean and sending him Sam Howell and DJ Moore. right on the backs of DJ Moore's walloping of the Redskins. So, sell high a little bit there, maybe. We'll see. Let's start with the first one, though. Bill, why don't you give us, or let me start with Pesh, actually. So, Pesh, tell us a little bit about the first one. You acquire Mark Andrews. I mean, I think the reasoning's obvious. Tight end was a weak spot for you. You go out and get Mark Andrews. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I made a blunder with Pitts. I drafted him higher than I probably should have. I let go him pretty early. And at one point I was, not happy about letting him go, but he's proven himself not to be reliable. Needed a tight end to shore up my team. David kind of scouted that he was probably close to rebuilding mode. He wanted someone for the future. He was also thin on receivers. So, we had some late night texts, it was like midnight and got a deal done. I'm happy with the outcome here.
There you go, Bill. As an observer, as a Ravens fan, a lover of Mark Andrews, what is your evaluation here? Why don't you give us a little bit of grade the trade? Let's start with David. What do you give David here? Acquiring Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson, by the way, keeper status here as a rookie this year for Pesh. So that means David will get 1, 2, 3 years in the 8th, the 7th, and the 6th if he does keep him first full time. So, Bill, what do you think? Grade the trade.
Yeah, I've got Alpesh coming out on top here. Out for Alpesh, I'm going to give him an A.
An A, strong
an
A.
An A. Not an
Just
A
a
minus,
solid
not
A.
an A plus, an A.
There you go. 93 to a 97. What about David?
Look, Mark Andrews, I mean, he's one of only every year there's like two to maybe 3 top tight ends, right? You got Kelsey, you got Mark Andrews, and you got Kittle, maybe. And this year, maybe some other scrubs working their way in there. But so for Alpesh to get Mark Andrews like that, David just gives him, and Mark Andrews is David's boy.
Yeah,
I don't understand this trade at all.
No, you don't. Okay, so what's your grade for David?
So I'm gonna give David a C- here. David's used to hearing that, going back to high school. So I'm just gonna continue it here. David gets a C- for this trade. He gives up his boy Mark Andrews.
Bring the sandbags out.
Garrett Wilson, is he even the best wide receiver on that team? I don't even think so. Who the fuck knows? Yeah,
I think he's definitely the best receiver on that team, but I understand if you want to rip him a little bit for the trade. I mean, Garrett Wilson's been up and down, obviously, the quarterback challenges, but I will say, keeper value-wise, I think, this is a pretty solid return, if we're being honest, right? Let's picture ideal space. Aaron Rodgers comes back. He, seems like he might be healthier than maybe we know or think, right? So if he comes back healthy next year and he goes right back to Garrett Wilson, we'll see what happens. I think 3 years at an 8.76, it's a good return. But I like the trade for Pesh better. I do agree with that piece.
When did you make this trade, Pesh? Week 5 or week 4, something like that? The season was just beginning. It was like just in the infancy.
It was an early place to sell. Yeah.
David saw his team. He knew what he had.
Who knew David would be so influenced by the Get Fuck Tree Hills podcast when I ripped him for the first 2 weeks? Maybe I just coded spirit, and then little did I know I was just giving Pesh Mark Andrews. So on to trade 2. I think another interesting trade. I mean, look, I think both of these trades are solid trades. So I think good on you, Pesh, and good on Sean and David as well. So acquiring Trevor Lawrence and Michael Pittman for Sam Howell and DJ Moore. Pesh, what's the thought process here when you and Sean are talking about this?
I was targeting quarterback as shopping around the league. I saw Sean, as we kind of mentioned in the early podcast, that he's like the quarterback whisperer. I knew he had 4. I knew he didn't need 4. Trevor Lawrence was on his bench. He would start on my team. Sam Howell was good. At that point, he was wildly inconsistent. I think he's still wildly inconsistent. So, I gave him a quarterback back because Richardson got hurt. And then I kind of just tossed in Pittman for me. And then he needed a wide receiver. I mean, his wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, were on and off. Devontae Adams is, overall underperformed. So
yeah,
I gave him DJ Moore. I sold him high, and he ate it up.
Sold him high. He ate it up. Wow, interesting. Throwing Sean under the bus a little bit. Bill, what's your reaction to this trade?
Well, I'm looking at Trevor Lawrence's stats, and Trevor Lawrence hasn't scored above 100 all year. Isn't that shocking? So initially, you look at this trade, and you're like, man, Pesh fleeced Sean here, but maybe not. I mean, I think Howell, except for a week or two, is putting up crushing numbers. So.
I mean, Howell's like quarterback 8 or 9. He's got decent keeper value too.
It's a good insight, Bill. He hasn't. You're right. Trevor Lawrence has not passed 100. I think on paper, you see Trevor Lawrence, and you think going into the year, this is probably the primary young quarterback keeper. I think though, if you look in our league, right, Trevor Lawrence is going to cost the first. right? So this is Sean getting a little younger. He's getting much cheaper in terms of keeper value with Sam Howell. And I think on paper, this is probably Pesh thinking he's getting an upgraded quarterback. But to your point, it hasn't played out like that yet. So we'll see where we go. I'll take the grades here. I think it's an interesting trade. I think it's a good trade for both sides. I think it's a move that, I see how Pesh made it and where he sees the upgrade there. And I do think it's a good move for Sean. I'm going to give Sean an A-. I'm going to give Pesh a B. I think right now the prospects of Sam Howell are super interesting, and especially in our league, given how cheap he'll be to keep, and it's a 2 quarterback league. So, yeah, really interesting. Bill, any lasting thoughts on that trade?
Nope. Looks good.
Quick hitters practice squad update. Let's keep this thing moving. So we'll be super quick with practice squad. 3 guys activated, 3 guys that might be activated still to come. So Kyron Williams for the Rams, Devon Achane, both very similar, hot starts, injured running backs. The third tonight, Levis, he looked fantastic last week. He does not look good 1 quarter in. Those are our 3 big activations. Which one of those 3 has the biggest impact the rest of season? Pesh, I'm going to start with you.
I mean, it's hard to say. It's, I think Achane's similar to most are Kyron Mullins. They're like glass vases. They're nice to look at, very fragile. They're fast. They're like sports cars, but they got engine problems. I honestly don't think any of them are going to be really relevant. I think Levis is going to get stomped. He's got a week of game tape on him. Pittsburgh's not going to be relentful. I'm not impressed with any of those, to be honest. Sorry.
What about you? Who's your top one there?
I gotta go with Achane. I mean, I know you've seen it just limited on-field action from him, but holy shit, did you see that game where he put up like 3 touchdowns and 150 yards or something like that?
On like 5 carries.
Yeah, it's incredible. So yeah, he's a sports car, but as long as they're careful and they baby him for a little bit, hopefully he can zoom around the track. I mean, Achane's got the biggest upside of those guys.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going back to episode 1 here, looking at our notes. I think we had a buy sell the Dolphins offense. I think I was the only one buying. I think right now, they look fantastic. And when they get Achane back, they're just going to be even better. Okay, projecting a little bit. If we were to take a guess of the most impactful practice squad guys still to come, I think they're across our 3 teams. So I see Bill maybe with an interesting decision with Zay Flowers. Jonathan Taylor continues to increase his snap count. Pesh going to have an interesting kind of dynamic there with Zach Moss on the team. If they continue to share, it's actually probably what's worse for Pesh. So we'll see what happens there. And then Sam Laporta has been obviously the rookie breakout star at the tight end position for the Lions. So Bill, this time we'll start with you. Are all 3 of these guys going to get activated, do you think? And if so, what's the most impactful player down the stretch?
So to answer your first question, no, I don't think all 3 are going to get activated because I know for a fact that I am not activating Zay Flowers this year. I'm going to save him for next year. Because
tell us a little bit about that. So go into that a little bit. He's had a fantastic year. A choice not to activate him. Obviously, you're not beholden to this, but tell us about it.
This is something that separates, I would say, the top tier of managers from the lower tier, the bottom feeders, and that's that I have that multi-year forward foresight. I look into the future and I say, where am I going to be next year? What do I need? And next year, I'm going to need Zay Flowers. He's going to be a keeper, and I'm going to activate him week 6. He's going to come in for me at 0 cost, and he's going to fucking dominate starting at week 6 next year. So I'm I've got him. He's like in my back pocket. Every day I wake up and I'm like, should I take him out of my pocket? But I don't. I'm going to wait for next year.
What about you, Pesh? Are you smelling the flowers here?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense from Bill. He's deep in wide receivers. He's got Jefferson. He's got Jamar Chase. He doesn't need to activate Zay. Why not keep him? He can ride him out next year too. He can ride him a whole another year on it. Well, he can keep him on the practice squad past next year.
Yeah, 3 years.
I wouldn't activate him either. I don't think it takes a lot of foresight to make that move with his roster as it is. But
I feel strongly about this because so many people are giving me shit about it, and I was like, you guys aren't seeing that he's literally going to cost me nothing. To keep him on my practice squad and then use him next year. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Who's making fun of me? Curtis DH?
I mean, those are.
I mean, listen. The way you describe it, it should play out perfectly. It sounds very similar to Rashad Bateman last year, and probably the exact same thought process. So we'll see if that plays out a little bit better this time around. But you're the third party here. So Jonathan Taylor, Sam Laporta, the more impactful activation down the stretch. And when are they going to be activated? I mean, maybe we do or don't play our cards here, Pesh. May or may not be a guaranteed activation. Bill, what is your perspective as the third party here?
Yeah, I mean, I watched the Detroit game was it Monday, a couple days ago, and Laporta looked great. So I think Hassett,
It's fucking good.
you're sitting on something good there. Who's your current tight end?
Hawkinson, so he doesn't have to activate him.
Yeah,
He's got the same situation as you. He's probably not going to do it.
Pesh, you're gonna
We shall
activate.
see. We shall see. And how about the
You're
Jonathan Taylor, Zach Moss situation here? What do we think's happening there?
are you gonna activate him?
You know, that remains to be seen. I don't
Yeah.
want to comment on that at the moment.
I imagine that it probably depends on what happens with the Colts backfield. I mean, it's kind of a split right now, so we'll wait and see what happens. So, okay, cool. Let's move on. Let's go over to hot takes. So, Pesh, why don't you kick us off here? You've got 3 hot takes here. Let's start with the first one. Tell us a little bit, on the East Coast, West Coast, we got a few guys, one in Philly, one in Las Vegas. Tell us a little bit about your first hot take here.
Yeah, so this is a tale of two Tays or tale of two cities. We got Devontae Adams on the West Coast. We got Devontae Smith on the East Coast. Both came in highly regarded. Both came in with big aspirations for their owners. And, both overall have been underperforming. Most recently, Devontae Smith kind of had a little bit of a game. Adams had the opposite. He was upset, and my hot take is, they're going to diverge. One's going to perform and one's not. And I think Devontae Adams will be the one who steps up. I think look out for Adams, look out for this Raiders offense. Whoever starts being the OC, their job will be only to give Devontae Adams the ball. 10, 15 targets a game. 100% take it to the bank.
Let me just
Bill, what do
say,
you think about that?
yeah, let me just say, watch out for this Raiders offense is something that no one has said.
I have to agree with Bill here.
I think he'll get
an
touches.
interesting-
I think he'll get touches. I don't necessarily think the offense would do a lot, but I think he's going to get a lot of input.
Yeah, I mean, look, things do not look good for the Raiders right now. They just fired their coach. They turned over their quarterback. But you got a lot of confidence in Devontae Adams. I mean, look, he's an absolute fucking stud. Bill, if you had to pick one of the two, who are you taking rest away?
That's a tough one. My mantra is always I want the best player at that position on the team. So you got to go with Devontae Adams.
Yep.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yep, there you go. Yeah, Devonta Smith had a slow season. We'll see if he bounces back. Eagles still look good. Hot take number 2, Pesh. We've alluded to it a few times. We were just talking about Laporta. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts with the tight end position.
Yeah, Pesh's second hot take. I mean, I think earlier in on the podcast, we talked about how tight ends were kind of weak to start the season. And, that's true. If you look at the highest average points from tight ends right now, it's not very high. Kelsey's around 50. Next one's probably in the 30s. But if you look at the last few weeks, there's an emergence of tight ends. And some of these are free agent tight ends who were just recently picked up. I think you got to be looking out for McBride. You got to look at Laporta, who's got a keeper value, Ferguson, Kincaid. There's a lot of names here, that you can have on your team that are probably going to start popping off a little more targets. So I think the tight ends are becoming sexy again. And not to mention my own Mark Andrews and Kelsey, those are just household names.
It's true. And Bill, you've got Kelsey as well. What have your observations of the tight end position been? From a pretty, relaxed, unconcerned position, I imagine, with Travis Kelsey. But what are you thinking about tight ends this season?
Yeah, I had Kincaid. So I had Kincaid earlier this year. I drafted him. I liked him. He had a lot of upside, but I let him go. Yeah, I don't know. It was a little too early for him to be on my team. I'm happy that he's found a home with David, and best of luck to them in the future.
I mean, this group right here, we've got 3 folks on this call. We've got the top 4 tight ends in the league, right? So Kelsey, Andrews, Hawkinson, Laporta, and there's a huge drop off after number 5. So I think I agree that the position is getting more interesting at like the 8 through 12 spot, but there's still an elite tier here. We'll see how this shakes out the rest of the season. I do think it's a clear advantage for the 3 of us to have one of the top tier tight ends. I think it's pretty obvious that there's a certain points per game lift by having one of the top guys. But interesting position. All right, final hot take, Pesh. Let's look back at the draft board.
Yeah, this is everyone put so much pressure on the first 2 picks. Go back at everyone's first 2 picks of the draft and see how they've done. And there's been a lot of busts, and some of that's matched the ranking, some of it hasn't. The only thing I can say for sure is, Hassett's in first place. His first 2 are Tyreek Hill and Dak Scott. Everyone else has some amount of busts in their top 2, and it's kind of showed in their rankings. So, maybe there is a lot of value, or maybe there's not. Max had a bust in his top 2. He's high in the rankings. Bill didn't draft very well. He had Kelsey, but then he had Henry, who hasn't done anything. He's still high. It's an interesting look back. I'm starting to think that maybe it doesn't matter for everyone except Hassett.
What do you think about that comment? Henry, has he looked good? Has he not looked good? I know you have Spears on your bench as well. Where is your head there? And then do you agree with the take from Pesh that most everyone had flubbed one of their first 2 picks?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Pesh for the most part. But this is, I won't use the word flub because a lot of it is due to injuries, right? I think McIntosh had that Cooper Kupp injury right away, which, no one could have predicted, stuff like that. So, DH lost.
Came in injured. Didn't Cooper Kupp come in injured?
Maybe he
Cooper
did.
Kupp came in injured.
talking about
Nick
Nick
Chubb,
Chubb.
obviously a brutal
Chubb.
injury. Yeah, Cooper Kupp, we
DH
knew he
lost
had something.
Rodgers. Yeah, so I mean, a lot of these injuries happen. It kind of worked out. It worked out well in Hassett's favor. But as far as Derrick Henry goes, is he a bust? No, I don't think so. I think he's the 10th or 11th running back right now. So,
I think he's having a good season. Yeah.
Yeah, and I drafted Kelsey to be the number 1 tight end, and Kelsey is the number 1 tight end. So,
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, Pesh, I don't know if I totally agree with the hot take, if we're being honest. I think a lot of people kind of, Fenchie, McCaffrey, Gibbs looks good. David, Jacobs.
Doesn't reflect his rankings.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It isn't. So maybe, maybe the interest. Yeah, okay. So whether or not you nailed them, the first 2 picks don't necessarily matter.
That's what I'm saying. The only one that's
we're kind
mattered
of all
for
over
has
the
been
place.
Yeah,
that's true. Dak has been good for me. Bill, I remember you asking why I didn't take Rodgers over Dak. So you, thank God I didn't listen to you. Moving it on, Bill. All right, start of the show. Power rankings. Everyone wants to know where they're at. How do you feel about delivering the first power rankings in 7 weeks? Do you feel the pressure? Do you feel the weight of the league? Do you feel the responsibility? When did you start working on these? What is your thought process? Take us through it.
Yeah. No, I've haven't been able to sleep. I've been waking up in the middle of the night to change my baby's diapers and feed her, but also to think about power rankings. So, if you guys are ready, we'll kick them off and we'll start with 10 and then we'll go down to number 1.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Give us your
I think
10th
that's
spot.
how it
So who is in your mind, and you've told us before, this is forward looking, right? So in your mind, who is finishing last?
All right. So I'm going to put up a graphic right here on the screen, but we've got currently in 10th place, David. David's team, where do I start? Get credit to David because he knew before all of us that his team was really bad, and he started trading away his players for the future. So maybe Hassett knew it too. But
I had David in 10th week 1.
David's currently
had him in the lower end of the power rankings from the start, I think.
David's currently starting at quarterback a guy named Bagant.
I think it's Bagant. Yeah, I think.
I get.
There you go.
Yeah.
And Kenny Pickett, and he's been trying to sell that Kenny Pickett's a great quarterback for like the past 2 years. And,
Kenny Pickett, by the way, we're nearing halftime here. He's got 15 points right now in the first half. I mean, so what do you think? Is there any fixing this team? I mean, on the surface, it doesn't look like it should be this bad. But the quarterback position, it certainly looks bleak this week. I don't know. What are your takeaways? What are your prospects for David here?
I don't know what he can do. I think I kind of tend to think that he's giving up on the season. So when your manager doesn't have faith in you, then what do you have? I mean, he's gotten lucky with guys like with Adam Thielen, but the rest of his team's really not performing. Maybe he's got Dalton Kincaid to help him the rest of the year, but other than that, who's he got? I don't know. Nobody.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's David in 10th. Bill, who is just a smidge better than David, coming in your 9th spot.
All right. So no surprise here. We've got DH in 9th. DH's team, you look at it and you're like, man, is this team actually better than 9th? He's got Tua. He's got Saquon. He's got Debo coming back. He's got Rodgers coming back. Maybe he's still got an outside chance of the playoffs if things really float his way. But right now he's in 9th.
Thoughts on a DH's team?
I mean, I agree. I think the thing about the last 2 teams you've talked about, David and DH, they've both been pretty vocal about giving up on their teams and rebuilding. DH asking for picks for trade for players. I mean, he's all but been in rebuild mode. We just have to make sure he doesn't actually tank. That could be, that could have some, issues here with the league and with our commissioner.
Yeah.
But I agree. He's, and look back at Dave's team. I think his team's a team of misfit toys. There's a bunch of random people picked up here and there. Very few that he's drafted and kept. Like, it's been poor management for a couple of years now. That's led to this like hodgepodge roster.
Yeah.
You say hodgepodge, but it looks like to me, it looks like he focuses on drafting Commanders players. He's got Brian Robinson, Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson. I just don't see that because
that was David's team I was describing, but you're right about DH's team. Yeah. That's also why he's not doing very well and why I got rid of Howell.
Yeah,
maybe a little overinvested in Commanders. I mean, look, Terry McLaurin has sort of been his pillar keeper for the last 2 to 3 years because he's been kept at such a late round, which, Terry's obviously been good, but he hasn't been elite. And if that's your primary guy over the course of 2 to 3 years, then, I don't know if you're building a sustainable core for the future. But you're right about, he does have a few pop guys. I mean, Tua at any point can kill you. And like I said earlier, he's in 10th place. He's also only 2 games out of the playoffs. So to your point, Pesh, I agree. I hope I do expect that no one will be tanking per se. And I do actually have a few thoughts on this. Maybe we'll chat on another episode about my takes on what a trade market looks like with defined buyers and sellers. So, maybe some more coming from me there. But let's move on to number 8, Bill. We've got David in 10th. We've got DH in 9th. Who you got in 8th?
Fenchie's in 8th. And
Fenchie, man, big week for Fenchie. You're going to slot him in 8th, though.
Yeah. This is a surprise, right? Because he just put up almost 700 points. He got a pizza last week. And I was just talking about how he's on the cusp of the playoffs, but I'm going to put him in 8th now. Why? Because they lost Kirk Cousins. Such a devastating blow. I mean, Cousins put up numbers week in, week out. And so now I go down Fenchie's team and I look at it and I see Justice Hill. I see Gabe Davis. I see KJ Osborne, Brandon Cooks. What do all these guys have in common? They're not the best player at that position on their team. So I don't know. I'm really disappointed. It sucks for Fenchie, but he drops to 8th.
That's your thoughts.
I mean, I agree his team's in trouble, but Justin Fields might be coming back. He has Christian McCaffrey. He does have Jahmyr Gibbs, who may be affected by Montgomery. That remains to be seen. He's got some value there. Calvin Ridley's been doing a little bit better with a little bit of a actually never mind. Calvin Ridley hasn't. He's been doing a little bit better. With a little bit of a resurgence from Trevor Lawrence. I think there's some pieces there where I'd put him higher than 8th. Personally, I'd put him higher. I think he's got more studs on his team. Kareem Hunt could be a stud now that, Chubbs is out. I think he's got something there.
I think the Cousin injury is a big, hurt for this team.
And number 7, we've got Dooley. You look down his roster and really, the only high point is Mahomes. You look at the rest of the guys, and they're all kind of not the top guys on the team. So, we like Dooley at 7, just outside the playoffs.
That's your thoughts on Dooley.
So Dooley's the hill you're going to die on. He's a person you've been, saying to make the playoffs. Here's kind of borderline playoffs just because of Mahomes. I don't think he's that high. I think his name, Mahomes, and fantasy incompetence, underline bold fantasy incompetence. I don't think he has much else. I think he's got Waddle. I'm not sold on Stroud going forward. He's feast or famine. He got destroyed by me. I expected to destroy him, and I did.
Yeah, I think Dooley, has had an interesting schedule, bouncing back and forth, 640, 360, 640, 370. So he's good, he's bad, he's good, he's bad. He's living and dying by Mahomes, it seems. Najee Harris having a little bit of a bounce back tonight. So that'll be nice, but I agree. I think Waddle looks great. I actually think Stroud will be good, but there's not a ton of strong depth here. So we'll see how far you can take them. Okay, Bill, that's our bottom 4. So those are the guys outside of the playoffs. We've got David, DH, Fench, Dooley. Feels awfully familiar. I think it feels like last year's playoff missing teams as well. But why don't you give us our 6th seed here? The last team to make the playoffs here. Who you got at 6?
Yeah, we've got Swift kicking the digs. We've got Curtis at number 6. I don't know if that's an original team name, but I kind of dig it. But you look at his team and there's a lot of star power there, right? We've got Austin Eckler, we've got Swift, we've got Diggs, we've got a guy, Gus Edwards, who's overperformed this year. So he's got a lot of guys who can make plays. I like Curtis at 6.
What's
Yeah,
your
for
thoughts
my
on Kurt?
yeah, I think he's got a decent team. I think star power. He's got the sexy factor. He's got some studs. Eckler, Swift, Diggs. A nice little combo. Edwards becoming the primary back on the Ravens. I think he's carved out a nice niche there. I worry about his quarterbacks in a quarterback league. Matt Stafford, is his eighth quarterback. He's like not ranked super well. He hasn't done super great. He's underperformed. Has some turnovers. New receivers. And Bryce Young is like a poor man's Stroud. And CJ Stroud. And CJ Stroud isn't, someone I'm super bullish on. So I don't see, and Daniel Jones in the bench. There's some stuff missing there.
Yeah, you talked earlier about Devonta Smith hasn't looked great. I agree. Diggs is great. Eckler is good. Swift has had a great year. We'll see kind of how the Philly backfield continues to shake out. QB2 is a big challenge for this team. So and Stafford will have to stay healthy, right? He's got this thumb injury. He's only QB 15, so he's actually been a little worse than maybe my initial perception, and he certainly can't afford to lose Stafford to injury. So that's Kurt in the 6th spot. Bill, who you got in the 5 spot?
Sean comes in at 5. Sean's got the overall best player in the league in Josh Allen. Beyond that, he's also got some other weapons. Hopkins, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore he got from Pesh. I like Sean's team. It's middle of the pack. If Devontae Adams can make some plays and impress throughout the rest of the season, I think Sean has the potential to advance in the playoffs.
Yeah, I laughed when he said DJ Moore, but I wasn't laughing about that. I just, as you were talking, got a trade notification from David, and it wasn't good, and it goes towards his tanking, or a rebuild. So I laughed. I looked at it, out of respect for David. I won't say what the trade was, but it's never going to happen. But yes, Sean's team, he's a quarterback team. He's got some quarterbacks there. He's got Josh Allen, Sam Howell. Sam Howell's inconsistent, but he's got a high ceiling. He's got a low floor as well. Josh Allen's got a high ceiling. He's got a low and a high floor as well. Mostert, he's a glass face. He's a sports car. He can never stay healthy. He's now actually been healthy. I thought he's been hurt the last couple of weeks because he's just fallen off the fantasy planet. And Madison not much there. Hopkins inconsistent. New quarterback rookie. Michael Thomas hasn't done much. Keenan Allen, DJ Moore. Keenan Allen's consistent. DJ Moore, maybe he'll bounce back when Fields is back. I think he's ranked roughly where he should be.
Yeah, I think Sean at 5th makes sense. I mean, look, the quarterbacks are solid. Sam Howell certainly looks like he could be a great fantasy piece. The wide receivers are solid. The running backs leave some question marks. So I think 5th makes sense. All right, Bill. So who you got in the semis? We're into our top 4 semifinals here. Who's coming into 4th?
Yeah, so let me start off by saying, Mac, I owe you an apology. I had you, I think, 9th or 10th last time we were on the air. And so you have overperformed.
Big jump.
I like your team. I'm going to put you in 4th place. You've got some playmakers, right? Great wide receivers, AJ Brown, Cooper Kupp. Your quarterback's still a little questionable. Mac Jones and Geno Smith. Is Geno Smith going to get back to the way he was last year? Probably not. We don't know. They face the Ravens this weekend, but I like you in 4th place.
Yeah, from my side, I'm gonna start this off by saying kudos to Mac. Yeah, we all had him written off pretty early. Right after the draft, he had an okay team after Chubb injury and having Kupp out for a bit. I thought Kupp would be out longer. He said probably not, and he was kind of right. Mac is a little train that could, or whatever that Thomas the Train choo choo. He just makes it happen. Like somehow he's in 2nd place, not in the power rankings, which are more important, but in the standings. A little bit of luck there, but he's got some players that you mentioned. I'm a little bit not sold on his quarterbacks, but we'll see. Props to Mac for being where he is. Plays good fantasy defense.
Yeah, Mac is 5th in points in the league, so 4th in the power rankings. But hey, 2nd in the standings. The quarterbacks do leave a little bit to be desired, although Jared Goff's on bye this week and has been pretty good. Wide receivers, though, maybe the best crew in the league: AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Cooper Kupp. Obvious question marks at running back, though. I'm sure holding him back there. Okay, cool. We are on to the final 3. Listen, this is an unbiased podcast. There's no biases here. The fact that the 3 of us are on the podcast has no impact on the power rankings. But Bill, the top 3 teams are right here on the call. So Pesh and I don't know what the standings look like. Why don't you break the news to us? Who you got in 3rd?
Are these rankings by looks or by power rankings for fantasy football? Because I can't tell.
Oh, I guess we'll have to wait and see. No, but let me start by saying that all three of these final teams, all three of us on the call, we all have powerhouse teams, and it was really difficult to come up with this final order. So in third place, though, I'm going to give it to Hassett. I like Hassett's team a lot. I think it's very well rounded, but there is that last flex / wide receiver position. Drake London, I don't know. Should he be a starter? Probably not. I don't know. So I like Hassett's team a lot, but I think there's just a couple of spots that have question marks.
Yeah, to me, it's surprising you put him at 3. I'd probably put him higher. I do agree there are some question marks there. I don't know why Ramondre Stevenson's starting on the first place team by standings, not power rankings, which again are more important. But he's got Breece Hall, Tyreek Hill. Those are good players. Olave's hit or miss, but he's a solid player. Hawkinson, he might his output might get hurt. Addison's output might get hurt by losing Kirk Cousins. And again, I went to earlier. Hawkinson may continue getting some targets with Dobbs. He likes his tight ends, but I think overall they're going to kind of lose out. I mean, he may get targets, he may not get completions. I do think Hassett has the best quarterbacks at the time in terms of top 2, not overall roster. I don't know why he went after the scrubs so heavily, but Dak and Justin Herbert are certainly a formidable force. So I think that puts him pretty high up there in a quarterback-driven league.
Yeah, I think feeling good about the quarterbacks. Obviously, I hit a little bit of a reset button with QB 3 and 4 as well this week. We have Dobbs and Taylor Heineke coming into the fold, so feeling good and safe there. I don't know. I feel I kind of built this team with a little bit of I want to try to hit a certain ceiling, and that's what Tyreek and Breece are offering. So I've been able to put up some good outings every time those guys explode. Herbert is fantastic. I love Addison, and I think Hawkinson will benefit from Dobbs. He's going to continue to dump the ball off to the tight end as he has all year. So it'll be interesting. I do agree. There's a big drop off in points scored in the league for the top 3, right? So all 3, 4,500 plus, and then a big drop off, averaging about 40 points per game more than the rest of the league, than the 4th place team in the rest of the league. So big drop off in terms of points scored. Okay, so top 2 then, Bill. Surely you can't put yourself in the top spot. It's you and Pesh. Who you got? And who's 1-2? Give it to us.
All right, so I'm going to show a little bit. I'm going to eat a little bit of humble pie, and I'm going to put Al Pesh in number 1 and myself in number 2. Congratulations, Al Pesh. You've won 4 straight games. That's very impressive in this league. I think you started off 1-3 or 2-4 or something, and you've won 4 straight. So props to you. I'm going to put you in first place. You've had monster games in 2 of your last 3 weeks. You got to think that Trevor Lawrence is going to improve a little bit from where he's currently at 80, 90 points a game. He's probably going to get up to like 120, 130, 140. So I like your team, Pesh, first place.
There you go, Pesh. What do you think? Bill bestowing the first place honor to you.
I was a bit surprised he put me at 1. I believe in my team. I think I have some good pieces here. I think I built a very well-balanced roster. I think there's improvement each week with Burrow getting healthier. That's been the trajectory of my team. As Burrow got better, Mixon got better. The trades I made mid-season or early quarter season have helped me kind of solidify my team. I'm happy where I'm at. I don't know what else to say. I think I'm set up well for the future as well. So we'll go from there.
Yeah, we'll see here. I agree. I think skill positions are pretty clean across the board. Burrow, like you said, started slow. And Trevor Lawrence, as Bill pointed out earlier, no games over 100 points. So we'll see if the quarterbacks can lift up the team, but it looks good. Bill, you gave yourself second. Where's the gap between you and Pesh? How close is it? How good do you feel about your team moving forward?
I think, like I said, I think all 3 of us are really tight up there in the top 3. It could go any order. I've got a lot of buys in front of me still with my quarterbacks and some other skill position players. So I think that factors into as why I'm second place and Pesh is first.
Yeah, very, your quarterback driven. Jalen and Lamar give you a 1-2 punch that is probably tops in the league. Derrick Henry looks nice tonight. We talked earlier about whether or not he was washed up. He looks good. So, all right. So there you have it. Bill's power rankings, apparently the most important of the rankings. I'm in third, Bill in second, Pesh in first, bringing up the rear, David DH, French Dooley, Sean and Mac, a tough decision at 4-5, and Curtis kind of sitting in no man's land there at 6. So, all right, cool. That's the power rankings. Let's move on to the final segment. Let's look at week 9. Let's project ahead a little bit. looking forward. So let's start off here with Fench and Kurt. Right now, from a projection standpoint, this is the low matchup of the week. Fenchie, we know we joked about it in the group chat. Tough week for Fenchie. He's got the entire 49ers roster. You'd think someone who's rostering the entire 49ers team might be sitting in a better spot in the standings, but nonetheless, they're all on bye this week. Projected 360. Kurt projected 530. Pesh, why don't we start with you? Who are you taking, Kurt or Fenchie?
Yeah, I think this is pretty easy for me. I got Curtis. Fenchie with Levis and Deontay Johnson with 60 points between them, or in the fourth, doing better than I thought they would be. And with that said, Fenchie's on his way to buy another pizza. I hope he hasn't eaten his pizza he's been owed, because this will be a long time before he gets another one.
Bill, who you got?
I agree. I like Kurt's team here. Fenchie is probably feeling really demoralized after that Kirk Cousins loss last year. That's going to reverberate this week. I got Curtis.
Yeah, the Kirk Cousins loss is going to hurt. I think it's a clean sweep for Kurt as well. Okay, over to Dooley and DH. So if we bounce over there, some points for Dooley so far tonight, but a pretty stinker of a projection. We got Dooley coming in at 430, DH coming in at 490. Two pretty low scores, two teams that desperately need a win. So in the standings, this is 8th and 10th place. Bill, we'll start with you this time. Who's taking home this battle between Dooley and DH?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to report some breaking news. DH just changed his team name to Dental Dam Dooley GFD. So
there you go. Good breaking news.
Despite this team name change, I don't think it's going to help out DH. I think Dooley's going to take this one home with Mahomes.
What you got?
I think DH takes this one. I think Tua versus Mahomes will be fairly close. I think Tua. This one's close. I think I'm flip-flopping on my own thoughts on here. I'm going with Dooley. I think Dooley's got this one. I think Mahomes will outdo Tua. I'm not super confident in the Redskins' offense against New England.
Yeah,
I don't love the George Pickens, but
yeah, it's another clean sweep for me. I think I'm taking Dooley as well. Just barely. It's a low matchup, but I think at the end of the day, Mahomes and Waddle taking maybe some of Tua's points will keep Dooley alive. So clean sweep there as well. Okay, third matchup of the week. Bill and David. Pesh, we'll start with you since this is Bill's matchup. But right now, Bill is the heavy favorite, 615. We've talked a lot about David, whether or not he's in kind of sell mode or down on his year. He's projected 474. Kenny Pickett hasn't looked great. Pesh, we'll start with you. Who you got here?
David starting Tyson, Bagel, Badgett. Yeah, I got Bill.
Bill, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm also going to go with me here. No surprises.
Yeah, I think this is a clean sweep as well, and it helps that Derrick Henry already has a touchdown. Again, Kenny Pickett doesn't look good. David's team kind of reeling a little bit. We'll see if he can make anything happen here. Okay, fourth matchup of the week. We're going to go over to Mac and Sean. Big standings implications. We talked about it last week with Mac and Curtis. Now we've got Mac and Sean. Sean currently sits in 5th place, Mac in 2nd. But the projection is dead even, 530 apiece. So, Bill, why don't we start with you this time? You taking Sean or you taking Mac?
This one is really, really tight, really close. And I think it's very important, right? Because the winner is going to be in the upper half of the standing, the power rankings, and the loser is going to drop down. So I like McIntosh just barely. I like his Darrell Henderson pickup. I think he's performed well the past 2 weeks, and he's probably going to keep performing well. Plus, he's got those sexy wide receivers. So we'll go with Mac.
Bush?
This is why I'm the Dynasty champ and ranked first in the power rankings. You're a little bit lower. I think this is pretty easy for Sean. I think Josh Allen will carry him to the victory, to the promised land here. Hopkins has a decent game. 30 points is about what you'd want from him. But I think Josh Allen, Keenan Allen, I think Sam Howell's playing against Mac Jones, who's Chris has. I think, between the two, Mac Jones may have more turnovers during the game, but I think they'll score more points. I think Mac Jones and the Patriots will try to do ball control, run the ball. Their defense will kind of be trying to lead them to victory. I think Sean's got this one. And also, Darrell Henderson put up 35 points last week. He's not like some sort of a stud. He's barely.
He's a good role player, and that's enough to beat Sean this week.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take Sean here as well. I think I'm going to go with Pesh. I think Josh Allen carries. I think he's the best player in the game. I think Sam Howell's a little bit better than Mac Jones. I'm not sold on Geno Smith, and then Keenan Allen's look fantastic. So I'm going to give the slight edge to Sean as well. Okay, final matchup of the week. Pesh, it's you and I. We've got number 1 and 3 in the standings. I'm the first place team. You're the third place team. Number 1 and 3 in the power rankings. I'm the third place team. You're the first place team. The battle of the heavyweights. Pesh versus Hassett. Bill, we'll start with you since you're the third party here. What's your perspective looking from the outside?
I expect this to be a very close game. Projections are very close right now within 12 points. I expect it to be a very tight game, but I think that I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that Al Pesh, he's got Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon. It's 2 Joes right there. It's a good week for the Joes. I've got Al Pesh squeaking this one out.
Pesh, how you feeling?
Every week I've been on here and I've been asked to make a prediction about my team. I've always predicted myself to win. I think this week, if I'm being realistic for my viewers, my audience, hope my team's not watching. I think I'm gonna have to pick Hassett. This is just a down week for us. We're facing some injuries. We got some buys. We're trying to get healthy. I think we're gonna come out of our bye week, which is this week. I think healthier and stronger. I think Hassett's catching me on a good week. I don't have the players I want playing. Some of the players I haven't played are a little bit banged up and nicked up, and he looks pretty strong this week in terms of who he's got available.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think it's definitely true. I'm catching you on a good week with the Jags on a bye. No Trevor Lawrence, no Travis Etienne. The Joes are leading your team. I think this week they're going to be a bit average. So I can't wait to steamroll the Pukachus here, secure my place in first place, maybe steal back some power rankings placing as well. So that'll be a big primetime matchup. We got Buffalo and Cincy. You'll have your 2 Cincy guys going Sunday night. I'll have Herbert and Breece Hall going Monday night.
Against my Jets defense.
Matchup against your Jets defense. Primetime matchup for the league. Primetime matchup for the NFL. It should be fun. We'll see how this thing shakes out. Should come down to the wire. So we'll see what happens there. Okay. Any lasting thoughts? That's week 9. Anything else to leave the viewers with as we go in and wrap this thing up?
I just want to say, thanks for being patient with us. We're gonna try to keep these podcasts moving, keep them, coming every week, or not every week, but more frequently. We're gonna try to get a little bit more involvement from the league. We're gonna have a few more segments and stuff like that as well.
Well said.
There you go, Bill. What do you think? Any bold predictions for the rest of the season?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm waiting for the rest of the league I'm waiting for somebody to emerge from the rest of the league to poke into that top 3. Is it going to be Sean? Is it going to be Mac? Is it going to be somebody else? Or I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I think, there's been a lot of quote unquote sellers who are vocal, but I honestly look at the standings. It still seems pretty wide open to me. A lot of these teams have flaws. The middle seems pretty wide open. So we'll see what happens. All right, boys. Well, until next time, that's episode 3, week 9. We'll see when episode 4 comes.
Eminem was right. Diddy ordered the hit. Pac, rest in peace.